I'm all set up. Hello. My name is John Romano Olsen. Um, Thank you for listening to my presentation today. I worked with partner in employment for my internship over the winter, and I have titled my final capstone presentation. Um, oh my God, wait, I'm so sorry. Hide, hide, voting, meeting controls. There we go. Sorry. I have named my final presentation Interdisciplinary Outdoor Education, Immigrant Support, and the Fight Against Climate Change. Um, I'm going to walk you guys through my poster today in different sections and break it down so it's more easy to digest. If you have questions as you're going through, please let me know or drop it in chat. Okay, there we go. So for my background, there are sort of three main issues that I needed to take into account. The first is climate change and sort of A, the fight against climate change, and B, as climate change worsens, the climate change-driven immigration crises will continue to increase, and so we will be seeing more immigration over the next decades as the globe continues to warm. Second is that immigrants and refugees face barriers um, for attaining post-secondary education and within the current educational system. And third, because these educational institutions play a very vital role in helping these immigrants sort of acclimate and integrate into the US uh, society and economy. Um, the fact that these educational institutions are not properly preparing our immigrant populations needs to be examined and combated, which has led me to my research question, which is how does outdoor education and environmental education increase educational equity, efficacy for immigrants while supporting the long-term fight against climate change? So to kind of further provide some background, I'm going to go through my internship and my research methods. First, I worked with Partner in Employment, or PI, which is a nonprofit organization which uplifts and supports immigrant and refugee populations within sort of South Seattle, King County area. They're based in SeaTac. And I specifically worked with one of their youth programs, the Youth Restoration Training Crew, which is a paid internship opportunity for these immigrant youth, where they do restoration work in their local South Seattle parks. They learn environmental education, and they also get prepared for a job or like employment and job readiness skills. This sort of went hand in hand with my research because my specific role was to enhance the current youth restoration training crew curriculum and program through examining, what lesson plans they had, how to make them better, kind of creating activities for the lesson plans, and also identifying new topics that the youth restoration training crew should be including in their program. And so to sort of to create the best lesson plans that I could, I needed to identify the issues which immigrants face pertaining to education and educational attainment. I needed to identify the best teaching methods because I guess like there's no point in providing a poor education for these youth. And and so that is what led to my research in terms of I would research library research articles and studies on outdoor education and effective teaching methods and also the barriers that those immigrants face to educational attainment. Here I have some photos. Those at the top, we have youth working at a restoration site at a park. Here it looks like they're planting, but they also do site planning and invasive species removal, among other things. And then at the bottom, that's me leading my eco column activity, which is an ecosystem building educational activity that we have here, where the youth go outside and they collect dirt and bugs and lake water and seaweed and stuff. And they create these ecosystems, and then over time they observe changes and write it down. So just that's one of those examples of a lesson which I created. Going on next, we have my results. So first, there's the educational equity aspect of it all. And so I identified 5 barriers to immigrant educational attainment: lack of information, financial burden, trauma and mental health issues, language accessibility, and academic preparation. It was very important for me to understand these going into it, just so that when I am creating my lesson plans, I can take that into account. Specifically, language accessibility is a enormous one. So, really trying to use a vocabulary that is more easily understood, not so jargon heavy. And if I'm going to introduce, a new term, be sure that it is included, what it means and or like how to use it and stuff like that. Moving on, I also identified 5 of sort of the most effective teaching methods, which also sort of work hand in hand with this like language accessibility and restoration work. And these are education outside the classroom, which is a more umbrella term for, basically any learning that takes place not physically in a classroom. So it can be outside, it can be inside, it can be in a museum, you name it. And then outdoor education, group project-based learning, hands-on activities, and reflective exercises. These were all things I identified as being effective in terms of advancing metacognitive skills and long-term memory retention. On the bottom here, we can see 2 visual aids I created, which are coloring pages as well for the youth, which accompany a lecture, which I created. I only had one lecture because I didn't really have another option, but I was still trying to find ways to enhance the youth's learning experience. And then on the right, we can see photos from an activity or a lesson I created at an urban farm, where the youth took about an hour-long educational tour on the farm, learning about all the different amazing things that can happen at an urban farm. And then they moved into a group activity where they planned their own urban farms, and talked about sort of the choices they made and why it was good, why it was healthy, and things like that. So that is sort of this example of a combination of several of these effective teaching methods, group project learning, hands-on with the coloring and the poster making, and then of course learning outdoors and experiencing an urban farm when learning about an urban farm. And again, learning outdoors also just is good for one's mental health, and it creates youth and it creates people who have a care for the environment and for our world. And study after study has shown that, creating these positive memories and learning outside really does help with creating pro-environmental people. And so I think for a long time, I kind of had trouble connecting all the pieces, but really it's sort of these 3 aspects of climate change and immigrant education and just effective education kind of can be seen as separate, but they are all linked. And this sort of outdoor learning and using effective teaching methods with these immigrants kind of I kind of centered around this outdoor education and effective teaching methods. I wanted just to make this visual aid to really highlight the fact that it's very interdisciplinary and that it's all 3 of these are being addressed through this program and through using these teaching methods and learning outdoors, which I just think it's cool. And then moving on, we have the significance of all of this research. What's the whole point? So of course, we're wanting to use the most effective teaching methods when we are providing training and education for these youth. And also these organizations like PI, which are tailored to the needs of immigrants, that are very needed. And they help promote this educational equity, which has been lacking within our education system so far. And like I was saying earlier, this exposure to nature creates people who care about the world and are more likely to support legislation that combats climate change. And at the end of all this, I identified sort of the two next steps moving forward is first to increase funding for organizations like PI, which support these immigrant and refugee populations. And second, to pass legislation which within the educational system, which specifically addresses the sort of lack of support for these immigrant and refugee students, so that we have nonprofits and sort of these organizations which can help them. But we also, the schools should be taking part. The schools should be helping with this. So that is the conclusion that I drew, and that concludes my short presentation. Before we go into questions, I just wanted to acknowledge my capstone supervisor, Emmeline Castillo, my internship partner in employment, my youth restoration training crew youth, and my friends and family as well. So thank you so much for listening.